I think my biggest advice is just to give it a shot, just to try to not be perfect in every which way. Just take one piece of your day and say, you know what, I'm going to kind of go ahead and give my be here and see what happens. Because I think once you do it once, you realize that not everything has to be perfect and that you overexhaust yourself with trying to do that perfectionism, and you're missing out on the things that matter, right? You're missing out on what your son created on Minecraft on the computer, right? You're missing out on those little things that you think, oh, I'll get to that. And I just think that at the end of the day, we can all be very successful businesswomen, moms, wives, whatever it is, we can be very successful, but not burnt out to the point where we're not taking time for ourselves or investing in what we really want.
And do this in 10 weeks. Today, we're talking with Kim Lee. Kim is a boss mama who shares her journey overcoming perfectionism. When she was a child, a teacher told her parents, I think that Kim is going to struggle with school. She needs a different school, a different class, one that's easier. Kim's parents did not accept this, and they researched a bunch of programs and learned that Kim had a learning disability. Kim took away from this moment that she needed to prove herself. And so she became a perfectionist, putting 150% into everything. And for some reason, that was really great because she ended up going to Radford. She graduated there. She even sent along a, here you go, teacher, look what I did to prove that teacher wrong. But that type of hard work went on the other side. When you're pushing, you also end up compromising in other areas, even without meaning to. And Kim found herself exhausted. And that's when Kim and I met. She was my peer coachee, and we talked about what does it mean to release perfectionism. Kim shares with us what specific strategies she took, 5 steps to overcoming perfectionism, and how that's opened up so much for her, not just as a leader, but also as a mom. I'm really excited for you to meet this boss mama. I wanted to share with everyone how we met because we're both in this coaching program and you're my peer coachee. So it's been really fun to have so much in common as achieving mom leaders and have this shared overcoming of perfectionism. So I want to open Kim with this question. Where did it all start? Where do you think your perfectionism started?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that my perfectionism started in my childhood. I think so many times we look back and kind of see what happened in our childhood that maybe paved the way that we are now. And, when I was in 4th grade, there was this kind of underlying, thought that maybe I had a learning disability. And my parents really pushed for me to get tested, and ended up that I was diagnosed with a processing auditory learning disability. So, it was a disability that nobody could actually physically see. So it was, years ago, it was one of those things where they looked at it and thought, well, maybe she's just not trying hard enough, or maybe she's not listening. But it really ended up being that I had this learning disability, and obviously followed me throughout, my life. Got to high school, and I'll never forget freshman year, my parents went for a conference, and the special education teacher told my dad, listen, she's just going to have to kind of deal with maybe a community college or something, because there's no way she's getting into college. Now, I had decent grades, but this teacher was just so demoralizing. And she didn't just leave it there in the conference. She brought it into the classroom with me, and it was like, you're not going to amount to anything. So just kind of take to the middle bar and be happy with it. And I think at that point is when I thought, you know what, I am going to give everything I do 150%. So I could not only prove her wrong, because I, being a teenager at that time, I was like, I'll show you. So I think that the perfectionism really started then. And there were things that I was doing throughout my high school career that I think even stand out now that I look back on. When you have a learning disability, they take up one of your electives for a special education class. And so they told me, don't worry, you don't have to take a foreign language because you have this class, but don't worry, you can still graduate with a 23 credit diploma instead of a 21, if you didn't have a foreign language. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't want to just be given something. So took my other elective, traded it out and did, foreign language. And at that point, you only had to take 2 years. And I was like, forget it. I'm going all 4 years. I'm going to go through Spanish 4 because I'm going to prove you people wrong, So I mean, even looking back when I was a teen, that level of perfectionism and that level of like, I have to give 150% was there.
Yeah. I can connect to that, this demoralizing feeling of this adult who's trying to help you, yet pushing you down. And that's a terrible feeling, especially since we want our teachers to encourage kids. We're both
Right.
moms, and we want our teachers to say, you know what, there's nothing that can stand in the way of your dreams. Not.
Yeah.
Kim should go to a community college. So
right.
Terrible.
It was an awful feeling, but I remember just kind of, it made me rise to the occasion. And I remember when I graduated from Radford University down in Southern Virginia, got home, and that weekend went up to the high school and made a copy of that little diploma that they give you when you walk across the stage. And I remember the words were, oh, she'll fall flat on her face if she goes to a 4-year college. And so I put a little sticky on there and said, I guess I didn't fall flat on my face. And I gave it to the secretary to put in the mailbox, because I thought, you know what, like, hope to God that you don't do that to somebody else. Because there are some people who maybe would have taken that and gone, oh, okay, I'll just settle for, what this teacher thinks I should do. So yeah, it is. I think that was a pivotal point in my life that I still look back on.
So Kim, taking that moment, because it obviously propelled you not just through high school, but graduating from Radford and then onto your career. I mean, share with us an example of just the perfectionism and how you achieve beyond just graduation in your career. Just give us an example of how, I mean, you've had a very successful career. I know about it, but if you can share with the audience.
Yeah. So when I graduated college, I actually was in the hotel industry prior to coming to the federal government as a human resource officer. And so, I think going straight into the hotel industry, I was in sales and marketing, and sales is one of those things where it just drives you, right? You have to meet your quotas. And that to me was something that I could really relate to, because it pushed me and it did kind of speak to that perfectionism and going past the quota. And then when I moved and transitioned into the federal government, my parents, it was kind of like a family affair. My parents were there. My sister was there at one time, my aunt. So it was this kind of legacy thought of, now I'm here and I need to kind of rise to where they were. And I feel like during that time, I learned a lot about myself going into the federal government and working in human resources, working with people. And I think in the work environment, it was, oh, you can take this training if you want. I signed up for every training course I could possibly get into in my first 5 to 8 years there, because I thought, okay, I just have to kind of keep going. And when you're working towards promotions in the federal government, it's competitive, but that's how you increase your salary. So at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I have to do what I have to do in order to kind of continue on, make sure that not only am I successful, but I'm also able to survive here in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. And I think when I got in there, it was just, it it was surrounding myself with people who were successful, and trying to emulate things, from my parents, and from other HR professionals. So, I mean, I think it was just a mixture of things, there at work, but it was always striving to do my best.
So you're really successful,
150%.
Kim.
Yeah.
And I mean, just so successful and very senior in the federal government. So this is like a winning strategy, right? Like that terrible teacher who said that terrible thing actually propelled you. It was like gas on this fire to prove pretty much everybody that you could do it, and you have. So
Yeah.
tell me about a time, Kim, when you didn't have that, you didn't win. Like when was it
Mhm.
hard to put this strategy into place, this perfectionism
Yeah.
strategy?
Yeah. It's funny. I can look back in my younger years, all the way through, my 20s, and look at times where I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't get into that, or gosh, I didn't get, applied to a certain club and didn't get in. But I think looking back, there was one point in my life that I look back and gosh, and think to myself, man, I like, what is wrong with me? Like, why is this not working? And that was, and I know I shared with you that my husband and I were trying to start a family and it was just not working. And I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. And 2.5 years of struggling with infertility and treatments and going through tons of medical appointments. And I feel like that was when I thought, gosh, like I'm not winning at this at all. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. I know I shared with you, I had gone back and started my master's degree and I had taken a few classes, but I was trying to balance that and I was working full time. And here I am trying to start a family. And it was a real struggle. And there were times where, I mean, my husband and I were, we were just like, okay, what is going on? And, we're going at it with each other. And I feel like during that infertility of, 2.5 years, it was a lot. I mean, it put a lot of stress on us physically, emotionally, financially. I mean, it was a real struggle. Now, fortunately, we were able to be successful with IVF after round. And I'll tell you, even during those infertility treatments, there were two things that stood out that I remember the doctor saying, oh my gosh, this has never happened. It's like one in a, million chance that this would happen. And, I feel so bad it happened to you. And I'm like, really? How many more times do I have to hear, oh, one in a million times that this would happen? And it was happening to us. So I think during that time was really kind of when I thought like, okay, I'm not winning. I don't know what to do. And really kind of just felt very lost. We had a great support network, with family and friends during that time. But at the end of the day, you're kind of left with your own thoughts. And for somebody like me who just kept wondering, like, okay, perfectionism, 150%, and then always coming up with a, sorry, not this time, it became very, very frustrating.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Kim. I mean, I connect so well to it. I really appreciate you being vulnerable because for me, when I went through infertility, I actually didn't talk about it with anybody. It felt really shameful. It felt like, why am I not being able to achieve this when I'm doing all the things? So I'm really grateful you're sharing because we need to share that this is normal and that it's hard. It's really hard. And that having a community of people to love us and support us is really important. We don't have to do it alone.
Right, right. I know. I remember I years ago when this was going on, I went online and found some really neat support groups online. And I actually ended up creating a group here in my community of individuals that were going through infertility and getting treatments, and put together a group. It ended up like with 15 people, which was amazing. I would have never thought in my small community that I would have had that, but we would meet for dinner, and it was nice to be able to kind of have that community as well, but be able to build it and kind of lead that group. So it was nice, but you're right. A lot of people do not talk about it. And, it's a very emotional thing to go through. So, people will say, oh, I know how you feel. Took me 6 months. And it's like, no, that's not how it feels. So yeah, definitely. It was all worth it in the end. Now my daughter is 12 and, thriving, and I have a 10-year-old boy who keeps me on my toes. And so, yeah.
So Kim, this perfectionism continued. I mean, it kept continuing with all the things, not just work, but also personal and even your business. I'm curious, like while you achieved, what were the costs? Can you give us an example of what it looked like for you giving 150% to everything?
Yeah. Yeah. It was exhausting. I remember doing things that weren't even expected of me. I mean, I would, a few years ago, I found myself labeling containers for my pantry, veggies, fruits, all these things. And at the end of the day, I'd say, to the family, hey, look at this. Like, isn't this great? And I was so proud of it, but I had spent 2 days doing this. And my son would say, yeah, that's great. But, did you know that I made XYZ on the computer, and come and look at, what I did. And I missed those moments of being present with my kids because I thought that I needed to put my attention to other things that really at the end of the day, nobody cared that there was a red bin that said veggies, in the pantry. I mean, so, when you look at like, what's the cost? I mean, the cost is, missing out on those times with my family. You know, I would say also just having time for myself. I can't tell you how many times I would say, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I just need to take a nap. And it's like, whereas sleep is very important, that's not really your me time. That doesn't bring you satisfaction. So I missed out on really what was going to recharge my battery. And there were always those times where I would think, like, oh, I wish I could do that, but I just don't have the time. And so I think when you talk about at what cost, my health also really took a turn. I had gained, oh my gosh, a good 40, 45 pounds. I was just very unhealthy. My mom was always telling me, she's like, you're the queen of takeout, queen of takeout. And, but it's because I was exerting my energy and 150% on all these other things. And so when it came time to, sit down for a family meal or, cooking, which I enjoy, it just wasn't there. I wasn't getting that satisfaction. So my health took a huge turn for the worse. I will tell you, it was, and it finally reached a point where I was like, okay, we got to make a change. Just it's not working.
Yeah, I also connect to that. Honestly, Kim, I did the pantry thing as well. I mean, it was like so satisfying to organize all of the different types of beans with each other and the types of, green beans and red beans. And I don't know, I was so proud too to show my family, and they're like, what are you doing?
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, my husband would fold towels a certain way and put it in the laundry, in the laundry closet. And I was like, what are you doing? They have to be a certain way, everything has to be in and perfectly lined up. And he's like, they're folded and they're in there. Like, who cares? But it was just everything had to be so perfect, right?
Yeah.
The coffee mugs had to be a certain way. And I will tell you that is when you finally let go of that, it is very rewarding, very refreshing.
So that's the perfect segue into letting go, because when you and I met, we were talking about just the things we needed to do this program. And I remember that we were talking about this book report. And I mean, Kim, like we got to share this example of how you were thinking about it before and then how we got to the other side. So tell us about what you were thinking about Kim Lee, perfectionism, 150%. What was it looking like? You were to approach this book report.
Yeah. Well, let me first tell you, kudos to you for coaching me for the last 12 weeks. because when I came to you with that, I was in a very, very catabolic state. I remember I was in the Chick-fil-A parking lot and talking to you, and you're like, so what do you want to talk about today? And I said, this program, this place is just stressing me out. I have this book report and I have this and that. And you were like, yeah, I have the book report too. And I'm like, can you believe I'm in the book? And it's so long and it's not on audio. And I mean, I was just spiraling. And I remember the assignment was 3 to 6 pages. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to do a 6-page report, MLA format, all of this. And it was interesting after that conversation when you asked me, well, why do you have to give 150% to it? Why can't you just kind of like do 90%? And the light bulb went off for me. I was sitting there thinking to myself, well, I don't even know what 90% looks like. Like, what do you mean 90%? Like, you're not listening. I have to read this book. And it was interesting because when we got through that session, I realized, you know what? Okay, I'm going to read the book. I may not read every page. I may try to just grasp the gist of this book. They said 3 to 6 pages. I don't have to do 6 pages. I could do 3 and be okay with that. But it felt very uncomfortable. I will be honest with you. That first time, because that was the first time in years that I've, kind of just thought, all right, just do the minimal. Still had to be quality, but it was going to be minimal. And I was very uncomfortable. I remember, you and I hung up the phone. I went back to work, was talking to a colleague of mine, and I was like, I'm not even going to read the book. I'm just not going to read it. I'm going to go on Goodreads. I'm going to go through this. I'm going to see what I can find out about it. And I'm going to, and she kind of looked at me like, really, you? But I did. And it was amazing. It was a great, refreshing way for me to realize that I didn't have to give 150%, that 90% was me reviewing the book. And then I hit the computer and did 3 pages. And I remember it got to 3 pages and I was done. And I was okay with it. Looking back on it, it was quality work that I did, but it didn't stress me out and I didn't let it consume me, and didn't make myself crazy thinking about how I was going to do this. So yeah, I remember that. And that was kind of my pivotal moment that I thought, okay, I can do this. Not everything has to be the A+.
So Kim, I remember this conversation and I was like, I think Kim's going to fight me if we're on the phone. I was like, she's not happy with what we're talking about. So, but there was a thought shift there. You went from one thought to another thought. So can you share that just thought shift for you?
Yeah. I think my thought was, I'm overwhelmed, I'm exhausted, and I'm tired of always feeling this way. I mean, that was honestly my thought was, at some point, something's going to have to give in my life because I can't continue like this. And I started just kind of walking through, if I was able to just do 3 pages, if I was able to just kind of, skim through the book, what would that allow me? What would that extra time allow me to do? And I started realizing that time was going to be able to, I wasn't able to give it back to where I give it back, which was my family. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where that thought of, what, is this really going to matter at the end of the day? Is anybody really going to know that I read, the whole book and did 6 full pages? What really mattered was just getting it done, having quality, and being able to kind of refocus my time and my energy on the things that really matter to me. And I think that was so refreshing, because I didn't spend, I remember telling you, I'm going to take off a day of work and get this done, and thinking, like, really, I'm going to use my own personal leave to like read this book and do a book report. So I think the thought was just like, get it done and be able to enjoy time with your kids and your husband and go do things that you want to do. So I just really started trying to prioritize what I wanted, to kind of be able to reprioritize and start seeing other things out of my life, than stressing about things like this.
I love that. And it's interesting because we started with your teacher and just like how demoralizing she was that you can't do it. And you, Kim Lee, created a winning formula that you would give 150% to prove her wrong, to prove everybody wrong. And that winning formula you didn't have to use for everything, that you
Right.
could give 90 or even 85
Yeah.
and maybe even a tiny bit less, and everything would be not just fine, but actually better. So I love that shift in thought. And I wondered, could you share more examples just about how you started approaching things differently, maybe at work and maybe at home, and what that opened up?
Yeah. Um, I would say at work, it's been really nice. So I am a manager that oversees 100 and some employees. And one of the aspects of my job that I love the most is the people. I truly believe in any organization, if you take care of the people and you invest your time in them, your team will be successful. And I started realizing that my time was not being put into the people, and that I was focusing a lot of my 150% on the projects and the briefings and this and that. And when I had the shift after the book report, I did start applying it to work and to home. And I remember just a couple of weeks ago, there was a project that I was working on. And the old Kim would have probably spent weeks on end preparing for this, presentation and this project, but I got it done in like 2 days. I remember I just shut my door, knocked it out, because there were other things that were important to me. Like I realized that I had employees that I wanted to catch up with, that I wanted to talk with, that I wanted to help. And I can't do that if I'm, putting myself onto this project for 2.5 weeks. Now, are there some projects that are going to, have to maybe take my time to do that? Absolutely. But this one wasn't that. And I think that that's where, being able to decipher what really needs that 2.5 week time or what needs the 2 day time was important for me, because I got more satisfaction by going and talking to my employees and having conversations and helping them with their stuff. Because that's where I find the true passion in my job, is working with the people. Not sitting in my office for 2 weeks with the door shut, trying to, put together a program plan that is going to may or may not get approved. Right. So that was huge at work. Just yesterday was doing something. I'm like, okay, we can knock this out, and let's get back to what's really important, which again, in my profession and in the way I lead, it's my people.
I love how you constantly remind yourself about what's important, because when we do that, it strips away the labeling of the red jar, the perfect font and perfect bullet point and perfect positioning of the PowerPoint. We realize that it's our people, it's our passion, it's our family. And it's a lot easier then to, let it go, which is hard to do,
Yeah.
but mhm. So can you tell
Yeah.
us an example as a mom, what that's opened up for you there?
Yeah. So I will tell you that I used to spend, so much time trying to just do everything for everyone in the house. Right. I used to hashtag, I'm everybody's everything. And it's because I always was constantly doing for everyone. And, just in the last few weeks, I was like, mom can't do it all, and I shouldn't do it all. We have to kind of reprioritize and look at what we're doing as a family. I needed to let go and kind of empower the kids to do some of the things on their own, which then freed up time for myself. And I think I shared with you that I used to over obsess about family vacations. I mean, I would research things until, the nth degree. And about a week ago, I told my husband, I said, hey, I said, there's this really cool cruise in December. It's 4 days. It's out of Miami. Let's do it. And he looked at me and he was like, okay, well, he has asked me all these questions. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, we've never done it as a family. Let's just do it. Like, this is going to be fun. And he kind of looked at me like, all right, sounds good. And I'm going through and I realized, oh, everybody's got a valid passport except mom. So, okay, cool. I'm still booking this vacation. I don't have a valid passport. I haven't gotten approved for leave. All these various things. I'm like, oh, I got to pull the kids out of school for 3 days. That'll be fine. Whereas the old Kim would have been like, okay, I need to reach out to the school and see if these can be excused absences, right? I need to check that box. I need to get approved for leave. Is my passport going to come back in time? All of those things that used to exhaust me, I was just going through the motion of, we're going to do this and we're going to go and have fun and it's all going to work out. And that over obsessing and that checking of the boxes, those are the things that used to take away my joy of planning a vacation with the family, right? Or when you would get to the vacation, it was, you got to go do this, we got to do this. Everything was on a schedule, everything was organized. Those were the things that actually stole the joy from why I was doing a family vacation, which was being with my family. I remember years ago, we went to Disney World and I had done laminated cards of where we were going and when we were going to do it, when we were meeting with Disney princesses. It was ridiculous. Everybody had the laminated card, and in case somebody got split up, they would know where to meet. You talk about exhaustion. And this time I'm like, okay, I'm going to book 2 excursions and we'll figure it out when we get there. But it's taken a lot of time for me to get to that point. And I will tell you that I know it's because I realize that what is important to me is my family. And I think a lot of us can say that, right? My kids are important, my husband, these things are, number one on my priority list. But what does that really mean at the end of the day, right? That you're going to spend 15 hours trying to do laminated cards. So when you get there, a kid's going to melt down anyways. So, why put yourself through it? But I think for me, I realized that I was just doing so many things to try to make things so perfect that it was taking the joy away. So, when I look at my personal life now, I don't want to say I live a pretty structured personal life because we're all busy and we all have schedules, but I'm not allowing things to dictate the way it used to, making sure that the meals were planned and in containers with labels on it and when to eat. I can't do it anymore. And it actually feels super refreshing.
I love seeing your face because there's such joy and such relief and just a sense of peace that we're all trying to get, right? And it's not this like, oh, I have labeled all the jars and made sure everything's scheduled and checked all the boxes and, plan for plan B, C, D, E, like, geez, even talking about that makes my shoulders rise. So I love this release. And Kim, look, you did this in, 10 weeks, something crazy fast. So let's try to, if we can, map out what were the steps if we were to say to someone like, here's kind of how to start to shift to release and let go. What was the first step you would say is?
I think my first step was acknowledging that I was even doing it, right? Because it had just become such a way of life for me. So I think step one for me was to acknowledge that I was trying to do everything for everyone and always giving the A plus. So that was the first step. And then number two, I think for me personally, it was reprioritizing, but in a reality sense, right? I would always say family first. I would always say, if my kids call me and I'm at work, I'll hang up the phone and go right to them. But I think it was realizing that I would say it, but I wasn't walking the talk, right? So I think really trying to re-emphasize to myself what is really important at the end of the day, right? When I look at myself in the mirror before I go to bed, what is it that I want to see? And so I think for me, that was kind of that second step was, okay, re-emphasizing to myself, what was important, and figuring out a way that I was actually going to be able to walk the talk, and not just say, yep, family first. And then putting it into play, just trying it one time with that book report was what I needed. And I would encourage anyone to reach outside the comfort zone when it comes to that, right? Because I feel like if you can do it one time and show yourself that there is greater joy beyond labeling containers in your pantry and stressing about family vacations, if you can allow yourself to do it once and figure out where that joy is and where you're really getting it from, that was huge for me. And then, the next point for me was doing it again, right? Okay, it worked for the certification class. All right, well, nobody there other than you and maybe a few other people know me, so let's go take it into the work environment and let me do something over there and see what happens with that. And then that worked. And then, okay, let me try it in my personal life. So having kind of that thought and being able to apply it in different parts of my life was huge. And being able to see that I was still successful. I was still providing quality work. I'm still doing a good job, just not allowing myself to be consumed by it. And then I would say the last step for me is just repeating it. I applied it in different areas and now I repeat it. And it's funny because I think about my 10-year-old son when I kind of think about these steps, because I'll say to him when he gets home, hey, bud, how was school? Wash, rinse, repeat, mom. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he says, same thing every day, just wash, rinse, repeat. Just got to do what you got to do. And I now apply that to kind of myself, okay, wash, rinse, repeat. I mean, I can do this. So I think seeing that you can do it and apply it and just repeating it.
I love it. So I'm going to just summarize really quickly, Kim. First is acknowledge that there's an issue.
Yeah.
And deciding to act on it. Second is, what are your priorities? What is most important? And I know we say family first, but what does that really mean in our life? So clarifying priorities. Third is taking it on the court and trying it. And even if it's scary, giving it a little go, a little book report, try it. Fourth is look at other ways we can try it. It doesn't have to be just a book report. It can be work and be personal life. And then last is wash, rinse, and repeat. Just give it a go. And it'll start to snowball, but it really just takes baby steps. And you are such a great example. I love, love, love it. And let's see, any other advice for moms trying to overcome perfectionism?
Gosh, I think my biggest advice is just to give it a shot, just to try to not be perfect in every which way. Just take one piece of your day and say, you know what, I'm going to kind of go ahead and give my be here and see what happens. Because I think once you do it once, you realize that not everything has to be perfect and that you overexhaust yourself with trying to do that perfectionism, and you're missing out on the things that matter, right? You're missing out on what your son created on Minecraft on the computer, right? You're missing out on those little things that you think, oh, I'll get to that. And I just think that at the end of the day, we can all be very successful business women, moms, wives, whatever it is, we can be very successful, but not burnt out to the point where we're not taking time for ourselves or investing in what we really want. So my advice is, be present and be in the moment, because, at the end of the day, like I said, look at yourself in the mirror. What moments did you get and what moments did you miss? I think that's huge. And that really resonates with me now, is trying to look and say, okay, what did I get out of the day, and what did I possibly lose because I was trying to be perfect? That would be my biggest advice.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. All right, we're going to end with some fun lightning round questions.
Okay.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Cooking or takeout?
The old Kim takeout. I actually enjoy cooking now.
Climb a mountain or jump from a plane?
Climb a mountain.
Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
Yes.
How would you rate your karaoke skills on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Mariah Carey?
I'm going to go with a 5.
Recent book you read?
Oh my gosh. Well, because I didn't read the full book for my book report, I can't tell you that one. I've started a lot of books in the last several years. I start them when I go on vacation. I get through like the first 3 chapters. So I've got 3 or 4 books. So I can't even say what book I recently read.
What's a favorite way to practice self-care for you?
Oh, that's easy. Once a month, I go and get my nails and my toes done. Hands down, once a month.
What's a good professional development program you've done?
I would say one of them that I did within my organization, really working with leaders and figuring out your leadership style. And that was a 5-day class, and it was fantastic. Really being able to learn about your inner self.
What's your definition of a boss mama?
Ooh, definition of a boss mama. I would say balance, being able to know your balance.
What advice would you give your younger self?
To have fun and not stress about the small things and not always trying to be perfect.
Nice. And where can we find you?
So I have an Instagram account, Cooking with Kim, and I'm on Facebook as well.
Great. And last question, do you have a final ask, recommendation, or any parting thoughts for our audience?
I think I summed it up, but I think my last parting thought really would be to be present and in the moment, keep your balance, know what that balance is, and remind yourself in the evening, okay, maybe I didn't do a great job today. Tomorrow's going to be different. So don't beat yourself up. If the one day, you're not in balance, make it for the next day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim. This is great.
Thank you.